Welcome back to Ta-Da 3D Printing. Today I will be reviewing the MMU3 for the MK4, the things that I like and don't like, or the pros and the cons. Let's start with the cons. The first con that I see for the MMU3 setup is that it has to be assembled. While I do understand that you're going to know all of the ins and outs more if you assemble it yourself, I just don't really have the patience to put a lot of these together. The first time that I assembled it for the MK3, it took me just over 10 hours. The second time, when I was a little more familiar with it and also was able to watch my own videos that helped speed things up, that one took 7 hours. I made 2 separate playlists for the builds, and while I did enjoy having content, this is just not something that I want to continue to build over and over again. I wish that they had an assembled version, even though of course it would be a little more expensive. Con number 2 is the huge space that this takes up. How I have been running it lately is turned kind of to the side, so rather than having it long ways or have the filament behind, I've decided to put them to the side because that's really the only space that I have. This setup is not super ideal because I do have to kind of pull this forward as I'm loading, but it's working okay. And overall, this size, how I have it set up right now with the tubes not completely fully extended, we're at about 44 wide, and we're at about 25 deep. So I do think you could get this on a 24-inch deep tabletop. You might just have to kind of squish these a little bit snugger. But overall, that is a very big footprint. Right now I have it sitting on a 30-inch by a 60-inch tabletop. I wish that the website was a little bit clearer on the overall layout that you need for this. You do see pictures of the printer with the MMU3 on top, but in none of these pictures does it show the buffer or the spools and the overall setup. And if you scroll down, you do see a picture that shows the buffer next to it, but even that looks very compact. I really think they need to add the picture that shows the overall layout. Con number 3 is that filament loading is tedious. It takes me anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to load all 5 colors, and that just depends on if it catches. It seems like every single time I try to load this, I have at least one that doesn't catch, and I have to pull the filament back out or pop the collet up by the MMU3 and pull it out that way and just kind of re-snip the end of the filament to just have a little different angle, and then it'll load. So it just seems like it takes a long time, and to have to load it to the buffer first and then into the MMU3 is just more work than I think makes any sense. I have tried to remove the buffer and it didn't work out. I had a lot of errors, so I haven't been able to streamline this. So I've tried to load all of my most common filaments first on 1 through 4 and then use number 5 as the crazy color that I switch out because it's a little easier for me to get to filament number 5. And then to cross over from the cons to the pros is the price. This is kind of sitting in the middle. This may be a pro or a con. If you purchase the MK4 kit with the MMU3 kit, you're looking at a little over $1,100 with shipping. My MK4 kit took me about 15 hours to put together. With the MMU3 kit of 7 hours, you're looking at over 20 hours possibly to put both kits together. And if you purchase the fully assembled MK4 printer with the MMU3 kit, you're looking at over $1,500 including tax and shipping. For a multicolor printer of this size, I have seen them on the market for more and I've seen them for less, so it kind of is in the middle there. Moving into the pros is the filament waste. The Prusa MK4 with MMU3 as well as the Prusa XL have very minimal filament waste. Everything that I have run on this is significantly less waste than the competition. And I know that that ruffles some feathers because there's a lot of things that you can do to minimize waste, but you can do that on any printer. So if you're running stock for stock, there is significantly less waste on the MMU3. All that you end up having is the little tower that is helping it to change colors. There's no loss of filament that has to be squeezed through, so it's just helping the nozzle get up to pressure, and you can of course minimize that tower just like all others. And all the filament that's in the tubes, of course, can be reused. And then even from the MMU3 into the next extruder, this kind of final amount is not wasted either. Once that color finishes and it does its change, it will actually unload this back, and that's what ends up in the buffer. So it does a little stamped end so that it can just reload again for the next color change. But this amount, and there's nothing cut anywhere that needs to be purged later. There's just the littlest amount that's in the nozzle, but everything else is retracted into the buffer so that it can be reused again. So you don't have any waste, or very little waste. Pro number 2 is the speed of the MMU3. The only option or profile for this is input shaper, so it's automatically going to be very fast. And every print that I've run has either been just a few minutes faster or up to multiple hours faster than the competition. Pro number 3 is that it's reliable. Once you have the filament loaded, I have not had any errors or any other issues once I left the buffer alone. So the stock setting with this large footprint is very reliable, doesn't need to be babied along or any kind of interference as it's printing. And then there are additional bonuses if you're using the MMU3 for the MK4. There are features on the screen that make this entire setup a lot more fun. You can change out which filament you're going to use. You don't have to go back in if you had the color loaded in a different slot. You don't have to go back in and re-slice it. You can just change it on the screen. And then you can also spool join. So if you have multiple different filaments, you want to run out one and then continue on with the same color, you can do that as well. Let me know if you think that I missed anything or your overall opinion of this setup and whether you will be getting an MMU3. Thanks for watching.